What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this month's My Edge in Real Estate for the month of November. So let's go ahead and get started and see how you can have the edge when it comes to talking with your friends and family as we get closer with the holiday season upon us. So first, I want to take a look at the national spotlight and see what's going on there that's notable. And I think there's a few things that I wanted to really take out because so many of us do listen to news and listen to things on a broad scale. So let's dig into the national setting of what things currently look like. Sales, NSA in September were 548,000, and that was 2.7 below sales in September 2020. Okay, so yes, we are lower. But excluding last September, which was distorted by the delayed selling season, sales NSA were the strongest, meaning nationally, were the strongest since 2005. And that comes from Bill McBride at Calculated Risk, looking at the bigger scope of things. Have things taper down from this year comparing to last? Yes. But where are they in comparison to years prior? We're still at the highest level since 2005. So we're still in a healthy space when it comes to the number of sales that's been moving on a national level. Be careful when we're looking at things because headlines do more to terrify than to clarify, and that's part of why I want to share this information with you to get some clarity around what it means when things are competitive, when things might be slowing down, but in relation to what, right? So just be careful out there. Give you an example. In this headline, it says foreclosures were up more than 49% compared to this time last year. Yes, but what did 2019 look like? We still have a ton of room. As you can see, 2019 had 28,000 foreclosures. This year, we're at about 8,300 foreclosures. So that's well below the 2019 level, but it is above last year. So again, headlines tend to terrify more than clarify. They're just giving you a snippet. Here's another example. Refinance originations will drop 62% in 2022, and that's an $860 billion difference. Why? Because interest rates are starting to peak, not even peak, they're starting to inch up ever so slightly, which makes it less reason for people to refinance. So it makes perfect sense. So is there big shifts? No. Is there reason why? Yes. So just be careful, because again, headlines tend to terrify. I'm trying to help you clarify what this information means. Do you think now is a good time to buy, right? With competitiveness being where it is on a national level, that's a question a lot of people ask themselves and ask their friends. Well, let me ask you this question. Why not buy? Can you give me a reason why not? Or even on the flip side, why to buy? Think about that. How would you answer that? Here's another question maybe to consider. What does the housing industry look like moving into next year? It's still projected to be a very healthy 2022. So be mindful that, is it competitive? Yes. But as an old saying goes, there's only two good times to plant a tree, 10 years ago and today. So I think the housing market is very much like that. We all say, gosh, in hindsight, if I would have known it would have blown up like it did, I wish I could have gone in 10 years ago. Well, your other choice is, if you're not in it already, how can I be a part of it? Because can I really afford not to be? Right? So things to consider. Here's another question I would pose for those that say, is now a good time to buy? Well, what kind of lifestyle do you want for the next 5 years? Right? Is your family growing? Is it shrinking? Is a job change on the horizon? I think a lot of these other whys should play a factor into the decision of should I buy or not. So just think about your personal situation with your family. Are you looking to move closer to family? Or farther from family, right, for different personal reasons. And I think that's really the driver of it versus looking at a simple question of, is now the right time to buy? Figure out your whys, okay? As I mentioned earlier, 2022 should be another strong year for the housing market. And that's per Mike Frantantoni, but also numerous experts within this space that are looking at the foundation of what our current situation is built on. It's built on a strong foundation of good lending practices currently. We have a very strong foundation when it comes to people having a lot of equity in their homes, which puts us in a very healthy position looking at the housing market as a whole on a national level. Home sales forecast to increase this year, so to the end this year, and perform well again in 2022. So this graph is looking at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the NAR, and the MBA, right? So looking at those four main institutions saying, where do we project ourselves based on what we know, right? And this gives you a little snapshot. And that yellow dotted line shows you the homes sold in 2020, okay? So again, we're in a very healthy place in terms of where we are, where we anticipate to be by the end of this year, and moving into next year, all right? Let's look at mortgage rates. We talk about, they're going to climb. Well, again, it's relative. This dates us back to 2018, where you can see in 2018, they were even in around 5%, right? Currently, we meaning those of us in the housing industry, expect interest rates to climb. You're looking at 3.2, 3.4, 3.6. Well, what does that mean? It means it will affect your buying power some. So there again, is now a good time to buy? Depends where you're at. Depends at what price point do you want to get in, right? Because if you do wait, no problem for things to slow down, right? But if interest rates climb, that is going to have a negative effect, unfortunately, on your ability to get into a higher price point. So there's cause and effect, right? There's always something to give up and something to take. I'm giving up the ability to buy now to try to take a better option to buy in the future. But again, that's taking away from my ability for my buying power as well for that trade. So things to think about as you decipher, is now a good time to buy. Right now, we forecast mortgage rates to average 3.3% in 2022, which, though slightly higher than 2020 and 2021, by historical standards, that remains extremely low and supportive of mortgage demand and affordability. So again, are interest rates expected to climb? Yes. Dramatically? No. And historically, comparing to where we've been, it's still significantly lower than where we've been in recent future, and even dating things back decades, right? So 3.3%, although it's going to be higher relatively and realistically, technically speaking, it's still lower when we look at the bigger picture of where we've been as a country. Our homes have taken on a different meaning, especially throughout this pandemic and having to spend so much time there. For example, home ownership is regarded as causing an improvement in the quality of life of a typical family. It is the most common method for such a family to build wealth. That can be used for retirement or other needs, including helping with the next generation. Such wealth creation therefore provides a major social as well as economic benefit. That was per Don Layton. So where we're getting at with this information is homes are increasing in their sentimental value. It's not just something we have, it's something we've made personal based around especially having to spend so much time in it recently within these last couple of years, right? So let's take a snapshot of 2021 and the average American homeowner. 64% of American homeowners say living through a pandemic has made their home more important to them than ever. 91% of homeowners say they feel secure, stable, or successful owning a home. And 83% of homeowners say their home has kept them safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what are the values of owning versus renting? That gives you a snapshot right there in terms of where a lot of individuals see themselves when it comes to owning a home. It takes on, again, more than just having their own space. It takes on a life of its own, really. Last year, staying home became a necessity, and that caused many homeowners to have renewed gratitude for the roof over their head. Think about that. What did that mean to you when maybe your kids had to stay at home to do school, and for you to stay at home to do your work? Those are just became your new norm, right? And how did that change the way you look at your home in a positive light or negative light? Some people figured out, you know what, this is too small for us. We need to get bigger. Some people said, this is too big. We want to downsize a little bit. And again, they're all personal preferences. There's no right or wrong. There's just preferences in all of it. Homeowners who feel emotionally attached to their home. Pre-pandemic levels, in around 58%. Post-pandemic, 70%. Again, it's interesting to see how owning a home is taking on a life of its own, so to speak. Buying a home is not just a financial decision, it's also a lifestyle decision. It goes back to the idea, is now a good time to buy? I don't know your situation, but again, what do you want your lifestyle to be for the next 5 years? Do you expect your family to grow, to shrink? Do you want to be closer to other family? Those whys should drive your decision making, right? And they're very personal. Let's now take a look at our state's California spotlight and see what's happening on a state level. As the market entered the off-season, California home prices continued to level off, falling below the $800,000 threshold for the first time in 7 months. So we've seen a trajectory of appreciation. Again, another idea of being a homeowner, you get the benefit of appreciation, whereas when you rent, you don't, right? But for the first time, we've actually seen home prices level off a little bit, and we're just below that $800,000 threshold. Again, first time in 7 months. In the latest monthly report, nearly 2/3, exactly 60.2% of homes sold above asking price, and that was the lowest level since February 2021. So something to think about. For the last, it's been 13 months now, over 50% of homes listed have gone above listing price, right? But this is saying at 60.2% of homes being sold above, that's the lowest level. That's the lowest percentage that we've seen since February of this year. So again, that's how competitive our market is, right? Over 60% of homes are still being bought over listing price. So things to be aware of for those of you looking to buy your first home out there. Don't be always shopping for what's your highest price point, because it may very well sell above that. Also, the median number of days required to sell a single-family home in California increased to 11 days in October, up from 10 in September, and the number 10 was also there for the month of October a year ago. Okay, so this was the first increase in more than 2 years. So things are starting to creep up. Things are starting to stay on the market a little bit longer. I know that doesn't seem drastically different, but take a look at your local market. Talk to your real estate, to your real estate of choice, your real estate agent of choice, to see what are things doing in your specific area. Because again, this is looking at the state as a whole. CAR, that's California Association of Realtors, unsold inventory index was 1.8 months in October and 2.0 months in October 2020. So looking at a year ago. So relatively the same. This index indicates the number of months it would take to sell the supply of homes on the market at the current rate of sales. So for those of you that you're just like, what? This means that if things stopped in place right now, it would take us approximately 2 months to sell everything on market. Well, what's the alternative? What's a normal market look like? Around 6 months of inventory. So this tells us we are in a space where it's still a seller's market. Things aren't shifting dramatically at this point, but they are creeping up. They are creeping up. So we'll see if this means not less home sales, but less competition, if we can get that inventory a little bit higher. The California housing market is showing signs of normalization. Just mentioned that. As high prices and a competitive, gradually improving economy continue to entice more sellers back into the market. Again, something to think about is, well, how long are we going to be in a seller's market? Don't know exactly. So the idea being that this is trying to convey is that sellers, for those of you that might be interested in moving, how long can you maximize your potential? How long can you sit in this space where it's a seller's market? Again, that's somewhat of an unknown, right? Nonetheless, you do have the certainty that we're currently still in this space. So things to think about, questions to answer based on your preferences, right? Again, I would just suggest for those of you that might be interested in selling your home, talk to a close friend that's in the real estate market and see what their take is on the matter, to see what is it that you're looking for. Why change, right? And now let's look at the local spotlight. I'm in the San Gabriel Valley. So I wanted to extract some numbers here in the month of November of where we're currently at, just to give some perspective, because the state as a whole doesn't necessarily tell the whole story on a local level. So I wanted to share with you some objective information. What I've shared with you thus far is a lot of subjective and opinions. So here we go. Let's dive into it. I measured the west side of the San Gabriel Valley first here. So we're looking at La Cañada, Glendale, and the Altadena areas. Single-family homes sold so far in November 2021. You can see 900,000 to a million. That's the sweet spot, so to speak. That's what's sold the most. And that price point of 500,000 to 599, not the sweet spot in this part of the San Gabriel Valley. Condos so far in November 21. As you can see, that $600,000 price point just takes the cake just above the $500,000 and $700,000 price points. And again, that's our condo units. Okay, townhomes. Only a couple have been sold thus far on the west side of the San Gabriel Valley to date. And I wanted to also make note, there have been 3 cancellations to date in all transactions. That's taken into account townhomes, condos, and single-family homes. Why is that important? Because cancellations no one wants to be a part of, understandably. But unfortunately, that also at times comes down to agents not negotiating from home plate, not accounting for everything that could be accounted for up front, and all of a sudden we have to back out of the deal. Sometimes it's a seller, sometimes it's the buyer. Unfortunately, we do come to this. So what's a normal rate? Single digits is an ideal space to work within. So 3 cancellations takes it to 11% of all transactions. Again, this is just to date, and this is only for the month of November that we're not even done with yet. But this is where we're at, okay? Now let's move a little bit east, looking at Pasadena, Arcadia, Monrovia, Doherty, and Azusa. So this is a very central part of the San Gabriel Valley. Again, we're looking at everything sold between 500,000 and a million. What's hot, what's not? Let's see what's moving. Single-family homes sold so far in the month of November. The sweet spot is that $700,000 price point. But as you can see, they're sprinkled in and around it, some higher and some lower. Condos, the sweet spot in this central part of the San Gabriel Valley is that $600,000 price point. Again, 500,000 price condos is close behind, but that's where we're at. Townhomes, there again, that 600,000 to 699,000 price point is what's moving right now the most. And there have been 12 cancellations in all transactions so far, which equals in and around 14%, little over. So there again, unfortunately, 12 transactions had something go wrong, whether it be a funding thing. Well, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have made the deal thing. So we had 12 that have fell through thus far to date in this central part of the San Gabriel Valley. Let's move a little bit more east, but more south. Baldwin Park, El Monte, Irwindale, San Gabriel. What's moving, what's not? Single-family homes. The things that are moving the most, that $800,000 price point for single-family homes. For condos, in and around $500,000 is moving the most. Townhomes, $700,000 is moving the most. So again, giving you some objective information here for what's moving in the month of November. And they've totaled 4 cancellations between condos, townhomes, and single-family residences. Again, they're in the single digits, which is an ideal percentage if there ever was one. Cancellations nobody wants to be a part of. But when you talk about, well, what's a normal rate? Single digits is a normal area to be within. And finally, last but not least, our friends in the Inland Empire that are part of the San Gabriel Valley. I'm specifically looking at those of you in Claremont, Glendora, Laverne, Pomona, San Dimas. What's moving, what's not? This is the busiest part of the San Gabriel Valley. This is the busiest part of this area that has the most things moving. You can see here houses. We're talking about in the teens and 20s already, and we're just halfway through the month of November. Things are moving out here at every single price point. The sweet spot, as you can see, is not necessarily 500,000 or 600,000. Things are relatively even. In condos, you've just got one each. Condos are not the thing that people are choosing to buy at this time in the Inland Empire. Townhomes, you got a few more sprinkled in there at 500,000 and 600,000 price ranges that lead the way currently. And there have only been 3 cancellations to date for as much movement as there's been in the Inland Empire. So things to know, things to think about. If you ever have any questions, Right now you're watching this on YouTube, so you know I have a YouTube channel. You can reach me on Instagram at RealGump365, also on Facebook, and also my website is right there. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm here for you. Have a good one, guys. Take care.